Hare Krishna. Is it Brajari Prabhu? Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Brajari Prabhu. Krishna. Krishna. Krishna Krishna. Hare Rama. Hare Krishna, Gita.
Hare Krishna, how are you?
Good, how are you? You're traveling soon, right?
I am actually. I'm in Dubai now. So
Oh,
I'm in
okay.
my transit. Yeah.
You're going via Dubai.
Yeah, because Singapore that time in the tickets were too high and also the cases were too many. So it was a bit worrying if at all they could, cancel the flight or change the flight or something or close the country. So I didn't want to risk it.
True. Today, we had a lot of sign-ups, but nobody has joined yet. Usually, we have like 4-5 people.
I
Right?
think you'll come in a little late, Prabhu.
Okay.
7:05.
Okay.
And,
Okay. So
and
maybe
I
we'll start
might
chanting Prabhu. Should we start chanting Prabhu? Vijay Prabhu?
Sorry, Prabhu, can someone else chant? Because I'm with the children here.
Okay. Okay. Okay, no problem. I can chant.
Yeah, fine.
Just give me 1 second. जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद नमः ओम विष्णु पादाय कृष्ण पृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पश्चात देशकारणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गिरिधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे राम राम हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे राम राम हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे राम राम हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे राम राम हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे राम राम हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे राम राम हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे राम हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे राम राम हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you for joining us today evening. Today, we are starting a new chapter, which is chapter number 5. Chapter number 5 is titled as Action in Krishna Consciousness. We have discussed a lot about the theme of Karma Yoga, and this chapter continues on that theme. So we'll be discussing this chapter. So let me share my screen. So again, as usual, what we'll do is before we start, we'll offer some prayers to the Lord and to the Guru Parampara from whom we learn about this transcendental knowledge. Om Agyanati Mirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namane. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharne Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschat Deshikarne Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gauru Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we've covered this theme of Karma Yoga, and this chapter, after all the knowledge Krishna gave about Karma Yoga, this chapter starts on an interesting note where Arjuna is confused. Now, this is significant because our Vedic knowledge is not about someone says and you must just accept it blindly. Vedic knowledge is very open to questions. Vedic knowledge is very open to argument, but argument which is done in a submissive and not in a way which is motivated by ego. So that's the way Arjuna is inquiring. So what we'll do is we'll go through the key verses amongst the first 12 verses, and we'll all recite these verses, taking turns, and read the translation, and we'll see what we learn from these verses. So we'll go sequentially. Brajari Prabhu, would you like to recite this first verse and the translation?
Yes, Prabhu. Arjuna Vacha Sanyasam Karmanam Krishna Puna Yogam Chasam Shamsasi Yachaya Etayo Ekam Tanme Bruhi Sunishchitam. Arjuna said, O Krishna, first of all, you asked me to renounce work, and then again you recommend work with devotion. Now, will you kindly tell me definitely which of the two is more beneficial?
So, Brajari Prabhu, since you read this, what do you think Arjuna is saying here? What's the context here?
So, Arjuna is referring to the previous chapters. I think especially chapter 3, where Krishna spoke about Karma Yoga and told how one should work. And then chapter 4 also, then Krishna spoke about knowledge and renunciation. So he's trying to, he's confused. So should we work or should we renounce our work? Is that what we do?
Yes, Prabhu. Yes. And one thing that I like about the picture in this slide is you see Arjuna is having tears. All of us in this world, no matter how strong we may think we are or we may want to be, it is perfectly fine to accept our weakness and become submissive to those who are superior. Arjuna could have thought, I'm a great warrior, how can I cry on the battlefield? But he realized that ultimately everyone is seeking shelter. And therefore, he did not fake that he was fine, but instead, when he was in crisis, he took shelter. Now, this may look like an extended point, but one key thing here is this entire journey of Bhagavad Gita started when, in the verse 7th of second chapter, Arjuna surrendered to Krishna and said, Krishna, I am bewildered, I'm baffled, and I've lost all confidence and composure. Please guide me. So eventually, no matter how much we try to grasp Vedic knowledge or transcendental knowledge on our own, we'll have our limitations because we have been conditioned for millions of lifetimes. So one should not be shy to actually seek help from Krishna and seek help from Krishna's devotees who can actually guide us. So that's the whole point of the Gita, to surrender to Krishna, right? So coming back to what Brajari Prabhu said, Arjuna is confused and he's not, putting it in a minced way, balanced way. He's just saying, Krishna, I'm confused. You, on one hand, you tell me to renounce. Sorry, I'll just log out from my Teams. I thought when I close Teams, I thought it will not come out, but looks like I need to log out. Apologies for this. Okay. So on one hand, Krishna, you're telling me to renounce work, and then you're saying that you work in devotion. Out of the two, which one do you think is more powerful, more beneficial? So then, in the second verse, Krishna gives an answer to this question. And to read this, we will have Kimaya.
Hare Krishna. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Sannyasa Karma Yogasya Nihas Shriyasa Karma Ubhav Hayostu Karma Sannyasa Karma Yoga Vishishyate. Personality of Godhead replied, the renunciation of work and work in devotion are both good for liberation. But of the two, work in devotional service is better than renunciation of work.
So the two parts, one is fully renounce everything and just go into samadhi of the Lord, versus working in devotion. Krishna is saying both are fine, both are good paths for liberation, but out of two, Krishna himself declares that working in devotional service is better than renunciation. And actually, for most of us, because the inert nature is being dynamic, right? Because soul is dynamic, we all will have desire to do some work. It may be in different domains, but we'll have desires to do some work. So that is why it is better always to actually work in a mood of service to Krishna than give up work altogether. Therefore, we dovetail our work in Krishna's service. That's what Krishna is saying over here. Let's read the 6th verse and we will have Aditi.
Yeah. Sannyasas mahabaho dukham aptam ayogatah yoga yukto munir brahma Sirene. Can you help me with that, please?
Yeah, so see here is cha. So na chiren
Cha.
adi gachati.
Chirenadi gachati. Merely renouncing all activities, yet not engaging in the devotional service of the Lord, cannot make one happy. But a thoughtful person engaged in devotional service can achieve the supreme without delay.
So Krishna is there saying that both are good, but this is better. And then later, like 4 verses later, Krishna says, actually, just merely renouncing, right? It will not make you happy. So therefore, a thoughtful person should engage in devotional service. Why do you think Krishna is making this distinction in this verse? Why, if someone just goes the path of absolute renunciation without engaging in devotional service, why does it not make one happy? Any guesses? Aditi, you can have the first shot since you read it.
Can you please repeat your question?
My question is that initially Krishna says that both paths are good for liberation, but this is better. Now 4 verses later, Krishna is saying that actually merely renouncing activities and not engaging devotional service cannot make you happy. So my question is, why do you think that merely renouncing services without engaging in devotional service cannot make one happy? What's the reason?
I think I'll have somebody else have a
Hare
go
Krishna.
this time.
Maybe I
Thank
can
you.
give a guess. I think by renouncing our activities, sometimes people think that it's okay to neglect their duties to their family, and that can lead to, I don't know, poverty or other kinds of sins. So maybe that is why Krishna is discouraging us from completely renouncing.
Yes.
Can I answer or maybe give a try?
Sure,
Vishal?
sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think what I feel is work is worship, right? So even if you are doing the devotional services to the Lord, right, but your day-to-day responsibilities has to be done, right? You can't renounce everything and just keep chanting,
Yes.
right? Everybody can't do that, and I think as a normal person you should not be doing it. So as a person who is a professional, you still have activities to do towards your company or what you're passionate about, and then on the side you are also attaching yourself to devotional activities. I think both your professional work as well as the service that you do, that will give you more sense of accomplishment at heart. That's what I feel.
Absolutely correct. So both your answers were absolutely perfect.
Prabhu,
Yes, Rajani, go ahead.
Prabhu, I have slightly different understanding. I think here what Krishna refers to as devotional service is including our day-to-day activities, because they are also meant to as a service. So it's comparing between doing some activities and not doing anything, like going to the forest and stop doing every activity, or sitting at home doing all our activity as a devotion to the Lord, including chanting, working, taking care of families. So he's telling maybe for what the Lord is telling is it's our nature to act. So that's why we cannot just give up everything. Either we need to work. So that's my.
Yes. And all 3 answers were perfectly correct. The first thing to understand here is what is the nature of the soul. The nature of the soul, which is the inseparable quality of the soul, is that the soul is dynamic by nature. Soul is not static by nature. The soul is dynamic by nature. So therefore the soul is always looking for happiness, pleasure, and the true constitutional nature of the soul is that the soul looks for these in service. Right now it is our nature has got covered, and therefore we look it through service to ourselves, but the true nature of the soul is to look for happiness and pleasure through service to others. So because the nature of the soul is dynamic, it is practically not possible for most of us to actually just give up everything and go to the forest. So first is practically not possible because our nature is dynamic. Even if you go to the forest, you'll end up doing something in the forest, right? That's first. The second thing is like what Vaishnavi and Rahika mentioned, that if it disrupts the social tranquility of our life, if it disrupts or disturbs our family members, then that in one sense affects our devotional service, but it is also contrary to our devotional service, because as people who are in the Grihastha ashram or in the Grihastha zone, and most of us are, right? None of us are renunciants, so to speak. For us, a big part of our devotional service is actually to take care of our family, be it someone's wife, children, parents. It is part of devotional service. So therefore, that is another reason why a thoughtful person should engage in devotional service. The third reason, which is linked to the first reason, is at the end of the day, the soul cannot remain at neutral. See, we have misery. This world is dukhalayam ashashvatam. Sooner or later, we'll all realize. That's something that Krishna says in the Gita. I'm not giving a pessimistic note. Just as we have pustakalaya and we have other alay. Alay means a place of, right? Pustakalaya means a place of books. Krishna says this world is dukh alay ashashvatam. That this world is a place of misery and it is temporary. And very often, because it's temporary, that's why it's a source of misery. So, if you give up everything and just renounce and go to the forest, you might negate misery and come to a neutral state. From -1, you come to 0. But that is not what satisfies the soul. The soul is actually looking for pleasure. This is said in the scriptures, Anandamayo Bhyasat, meaning the nature of the soul is to actually look for Ananda, not Shanti. Shanti will last for a while, but after Shanti, the soul will again want to act because soul is looking for Ananda. That is why sometimes, if you look at many people, many sadhus who renounce and a lot of things suddenly, and you'll see after a couple of years, they end up doing something or the other. They might do philanthropy, they might do some business, they might do whatever it is. And I'm not saying those things are wrong, but what I'm trying to emphasize is that this element of activity to derive Ananda cannot be removed for a very long time, because that is the true nature of the soul. That is why Krishna is saying that it's wiser to engage in devotional service. So that's the point of this verse. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll have one person recite the verse and one person read the translation, since it is 2 verses. So we will have Disha. Disha, are you there? Otherwise, Galaxy Note 20, I don't know who that is. Can you share who you are?
Yeah, I am Srini. My name is Srinivasan.
Hi, Srinivasan. Hare Krishna, Srinivasan. So, would you like to recite this verse?
English version or what?
Yeah, this verse. Yeah.
Okay, I can, no problem. A person in the divine consciousness, although engaged.
No, sorry, the verse, Sanskrit.
Okay. Naiva kinsi karomiti yukto manyeta tavatavi pasyan sranvan person chikrahan asnan gachan swapan swasan pralapan visarjan grahan yunmisan nimisan api indriyani triyarteshu vartanta iti darayan.
So we'll have someone read the translation. Let's have Vartika. Vartika, would you like to read?
Yeah. A person in the divine consciousness, although engaged in seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, eating, moving about, sleeping, and breathing, always knows within himself that he actually does nothing at all. Because while speaking, evacuating, receiving, or opening or closing his eyes, he always knows that only the material senses are engaged with their objects and that he is aloof from them.
Yeah. So here Krishna is describing a person who is acting in devotional service, meaning this person is working in devotional service. So Krishna is saying this person who is in divine consciousness, who is in union with the Lord, even though externally he might be engaged in a lot of activities, he might be seeing, hearing, touching, doing the exact same things that anyone else does, but at the same time, his situation is very different. He always knows within his heart that he actually does nothing. What do you think means by he actually does nothing? Isn't he doing? Isn't he moving his hands and body and getting things done? What does Krishna mean when he says he actually does nothing? Any guesses?
Hare Krishna. Perhaps nothing productive.
Sorry?
Perhaps it means nothing productive that's adding value to the world.
Not really. What this actually means is this. See, whenever we do activities, we always think, I have done it. And the funny thing is, when something goes well, then we really think I have done it. When something goes wrong, then we think, this factor was there, that factor was there. So, and that's the very nature of the living entity, to think that I am the doer very often. But a person who is aligned in consciousness with the Lord, he understands that out of multiple factors, he's just one small factor. There are many other factors like the divine will of the Lord, like his own past karma, and the material modes of nature, right? So therefore, when he's doing all of these activities, he understands he's actually not doing much. He's just being an instrument in the hand of the Lord. Instead of feeling I am the doer. Then in the second part, he knows that only the material senses are engaged with the objects and he's aloof. Why? Because the person understands that he's actually a spirit soul and he's aloof from the body. He's in the body, but he is not the body. Now this may look like a very difficult state, but essentially what it boils down to is that today when we do the same activities, we think I am the doer and therefore we expect XYZ results. But when we start thinking in this consciousness of being instruments of the Lord or doing the same activities as service to the Lord, that is when what happens is we feel aloof, even though we are doing the activities with the same level of sincerity or even more sincerity, but we feel a level above those activities because we are not entangled. What entangles us is the result. But when we are doing it as a service and we leave the results to Krishna, then we are aloof, even though we are doing those activities. So that's how a devotee works. And that is what is very well summarized in the next verse that we are going to read. Okay, so Vishal?
Yes, Vishal. Yeah. Hi, Vishal. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Brahmamani adya karmani sangam tyaktva karotiya lipyate nasa papina padma patram ivam bhasha.
Yeah. You can read the translation.
Sure. Okay. So one who performs his duty without any attachment, surrendering the results onto the Supreme Lord, is unaffected by sinful action, as a lotus leaf is untouched by water.
Yeah. So that is how a devotee works. Now, in this, the word adhai actually refers to, I think, adhai or tyaktva, I don't remember exactly, but it essentially refers to resigning from the results of the work. That's what it refers to. So when we do our daily activities, it is said that a devotee works in this way. Throughout the day, he does his activities, and at the end of the day, he basically resigns from the work mentally. He puts that work at the lotus feet of Krishna. Now, one may question in today's work from home, working in the metaverse culture, where it can sometimes be difficult to disconnect from work, how does one perform this? How does one, resign from the work at the end of the day? There's some practical aspects to it, there are some spiritual aspects to it. Practical aspect is that we should all try, even for normal mental well-being, right, to arrange our lives in a way where at some point at the end of the day we disconnect from work. I know it's difficult, but at least 3-4 days, whatever we can do, we should try for that. That's the practical side of things. The other side of things is that because the devotee is always in the consciousness that I'm doing this for Krishna, therefore, at all points, he's actually resigned the results to Krishna. His only prerogative is that I want to do this to the best of my ability for the pleasure and satisfaction of the Lord. Because for a devotee, the employer is not the immediate employer, but for the devotee, the employer is Krishna. So his accountability is actually to Krishna. Even on the material platform, we have to work as if we're working for the employer. But try this, do it as an experiment. Spend a week, 5 days of the work week, just beginning your work with a prayer that Krishna, please help me do these activities for your satisfaction. And try to be cognizant of that and try to apply this verse. I can tell you it will be a very, very blissful experience. It's not always easy. A lot of things that we discuss from the Gita are not so easy that we implement them straight away. But they're definitely practical enough for us to implement one by one, step by step, and incrementally work towards it. Sometimes people think that I'll take up Gita and I'll follow it straight away. In Hindi, we can call it Aaj Bharti Kal Chakravarti. That today I took admission, tomorrow I'm the topper of the class, right? Very often it doesn't work like that for most of us because millions of lives we've spent in a lot of material conditions. But in Krishna consciousness, in Bhakti Yoga, the journey is as sweet as the result. That's the mindset we should have. It's not that the day I'll become perfect, I'll be in bliss. Even the journey itself, even the baby steps we move towards improving our devotion to the Lord, even that is joyful. So every little bit of these principles that we apply in our life, proportionately, we will experience the bliss and the happiness of being connected to the Lord. So that's the verse 5:10. And then we will go to 5:12, which is the last verse that I'll cover. Whom do we have? I think Vaishnavi is left. And then maybe 2 more.
Krishna. Yukta karma phalam tyakva santim apnoti naistikim ayukta kama karena phale satto nibhatyate. The steadily devoted soul attains unadulterated peace because he offers the result of all activities to me. Whereas a person who is not in union with the divine, who is greedy for the fruits of his labor, becomes entangled.
Amazing verse. Every time you are expecting some result at work and it doesn't really work out, come back to this verse. This is the exact same verse I came back to 2 weeks back, when things were a bit here and there in office. All of us face office politics and all of that. And then I was just, I was disturbed in the morning and I was thinking, why is this happening? But then I thought I'll just open the Gita and this is the verse that I read. And it really resolved everything, because then I realized that actually my business is only to do it to the best of my ability, which I've done. And I can do the right things to ensure that the right things happen. I can be tactical because you have to be tactical at work sometimes. But after I've done that, actually it is Krishna's business to think about what results should come and what results shouldn't come. So this is a very practical verse which we should try to apply. Now here, the interesting word is unadulterated. You know, we talk about adulteration in terms of food. You know, if someone puts some, like the food has become adulterated, so means it has turned bad. Now imagine you have a nice bowl of kheer, or in South India we have payasam, right? Imagine you have a nice bowl of kheer, and you know what I do is I go to Sentosa and I take a little bit sand from the beach, and then I just put it in that kheer or payasam, and I mix it well, and I give it to you. How would the taste be? I know I'm asking a very cliche, like cliche question, but this will explain this. Anyone? How would the taste be? This is an easy one. Tough questions people volunteer, but easy questions nobody is volunteering. Any volunteers? Is my question not clear? Then I'll repeat it again. There's a cup of kheer or payasam. Go ahead.
It would. Okay, how much sand are you actually adding in?
What's
the ratio?
You can assume like 35%.
Yeah, it's going to taste sandy, that's for sure.
But wouldn't it be sweet?
Yeah, it would still be sweet.
But how would it be overall?
No, it will not be good, right? You're feeling a grain in your, like, kind of like a particle apart from the kheer, right? If it is made of rice, then you'll not feel nice.
Yeah.
So it defeats its purpose as a dessert, right? So
I'm so sorry for making all of you imagine that ugly taste. We are supposed to have prasadam, but instead of giving prasadam, which is because we are virtual, I'm giving you a kheer with sand. But the point I'm trying to make here is that even if we do things nicely, which based on which it should be sweet, but if we still have expectations of results, very often we have that taste of kheer. So if we are in Krishna consciousness, we are chanting, but if we don't try to apply these principles, if we don't consciously try, I know it's not natural for most of us, at least not for me because of my conditionings. But whenever these situations arise, if we don't go to the Gita, take these principles of detachment from fruits and try to apply them, then even while we are in Krishna consciousness, the taste we'll get will be like that of a kheer, which is actually sweet. But you know, there's a lot of adulteration of sand into it. And therefore, even being the first class kheer it will not be a pleasant experience. So that is where we have to constantly try and apply these principles to try to make our devotional service pure. What gives the soul the ultimate pleasure, satisfaction, and happiness is pure, unadulterated devotional service. What does that mean? It simply means devotional service where our only satisfaction and only desire is to serve the Lord and please the Lord, where we are not having any business transactions. Very often in India, you know, we might have been in the culture where, you know, Krishna, you do this and I'm doing this mannat, and then I'll come here, I'll do this, I'll break 100 coconuts. All that is fine. It is called Karma Kanda section of the Vedas. It is still better than not doing it. But the topmost yoga system is where we have no business transaction with the Lord and we simply try to serve the Lord. Now the question might come, but wait a second, I still have desires. What should I do? And the Bhagavatam, and we can go to the next part with this. Bhagavatam says, Tivre akama sarva kamova moksha kamo udaradi tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. That whether one is full of desires or whether one has no desires, one should intensely perform the devotional service of the Lord. And eventually, even if one has material desires, those desires will get cleansed away. So best is to try for pure devotional service. But if while trying for it, we still have desires, we should only go to the Lord and pray to him and tell him that please help me become free of these desires so that I can render pure, unconditional service to you. So with this, we'll go to the last part, which is always very relishable, and that is not prasadam, but rather personalities from Bhagavatam who embody these principles. So a little quiz here. We have, I think 70-80% of you have been attending for few times already, and we have discussed this particular pastime from Srimad Bhagavatam. Any guesses? Anyone wants to make guess? Which personality we are talking about who applied this principle of not being attached to the results, but simply depending on the Lord? Any guesses? This is a difficult one, slightly difficult one.
Is it
Anish?
Steve Jobs? I don't know. I'm just guessing.
No, I'm talking about personalities from Srimad Bhagavatam.
Oh, okay, sorry.
So here is so let me make it slightly easier. This is the personality, and this is a Sudarshan Chakra, and this is someone who was angry at this person initially. I've given a lot of hints. Anish, I'll give you a chance in some time. Let's go ahead. Whoever it is. Anyone?
This is Amrish Maharaj, is it? No.
Sorry, who said that?
Is this the one where Durvasa Muni and Amrish Maharaj?
Yes, perfect. Would you like to share what this is about? Like, what was the whole past?
No, you go ahead. I won't be able to say it so nicely.
Okay, then I'll probably give a chance to those. A lot of them have raised hands. So maybe Anantacharya Prabhu, Anish Prabhu, you can go ahead and share what the pastime is and how it ties back to this particular chapter that we just discussed.
Sure. Hare Krishna, everyone. So this personality is Ambarish Maharaj. So this personality from Bhagavatam is a pure devotee of the Lord. He is a ruler. He is a Kshatriya. So by the Varnashrama system of Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, he is a ruler. He's a king Kshatriya. But he's very, he does his duty perfectly, but he is unattached to the results of his work. So while he was fasting, so the Vaishnava culture is they do fast on the Ekadashis, right? So while on one such occasion of Ekadashi, he was fasting. So he didn't break his fast until the next day, Dwadashi. And that occasion...
Just one insertion here. So this fast that he was doing, and Rajani Prabhu, correct me if I'm wrong, this fast was a slightly special one, which was going on for a year, right?
Correct. It's a long fast. Yeah, I agree.
It was a long fast that he had been doing for the welfare of the citizens. Go ahead.
Correct. So it's a long fast. It's unlike the one-day fast that we do. So like Vishal. So on the Dwadasi day, on the day or on the time of he breaking the fast, like Durvasa Muni, who's like a very mystic yogi, dhyana yogi kind of category. So he by nature he is very short-tempered. So he came and as Vaishnava, the Vedic culture, we give a lot of respects to the Atita Devo Bhava, visitors, right? So Ambarish Maharaj took care of the devotees, welcomed very well, etc. Durvasa Muni came with us. So Durvasa Muni, so he welcomed Durvasa Muni, and Durvasa Muni said, "I'll go take a bath in the nearby lake and then come." So Ambarish Maharaj offered, "I can host you for that particular meal of the day." So he said, "I'll take a bath and come back." So when Durvasa Muni went, by his natural instinct, he went into a meditation. He didn't came back on time. So the mentors of Ambarish Maharaj, the Brahmana category, they said you should break fast at this time. It is good to break fast, so you can have a little of water. And then Ambarish had that water. When Durvasa Muni heard this, when he returned and when he come to know that Ambarish broke his fast by drinking little water, he became very short-tempered. And then he plucked a hair from his, he plucked a hair, and then a demon, like a figure, came into picture. And this demon was created with the intent to attack and destroy Ambarish Maharaj. But since Ambarish was the pure devotee of the Lord, Sudarshan Chakra came out from the Lord, and the Sudarshan Chakra killed the demon. And not only that, but the Sudarshan chased Durvasa Muni for engaging in such activity. when Durvasa Muni even ran to the higher planetary systems up to Vaikuntha Loka to ask help from Vishnu, Vishnu said, it's not in my hands, you offended the devotee, you can ask pardon from that devotee. And if you see the right image, that is the exact offering obeisance of Durvasa Muni to Ambarish Maharaj. Please forgive me that I have committed this offense. Only you can save me from this Sudarshana. And Ambarish was very kind enough to say, and then he accepted, and then that how the overall thing ended.
Yes. And one key thing in this was that when Durvasa Muni, shot that demon at Ambarish Maharaj was unfazed. He just stood there with folded hands, and his prayer was, "My Lord, whatever you feel best for me, you please do with me." And therefore, he was very, very detached from what the result would be. Most of us will not be on that platform that, something is coming in, but at least we should remember the Lord. And then we can pray, but eventually we leave it at the feet of the Lord, right? So that is what Ambarish Maharaj's nature was, that he was doing his duties in an unattached way, where he left the results to the Lord. Now, one key thing here, which sometimes might go unnoticed, is, remember we looked at that verse where Krishna was saying that if someone does renunciation without engaging in devotional service, he might not be very happy, and that is not the best way. Durvasa Muni is a classic example of that. He was a great yogi doing a lot of meditation, but he had no shelter in devotional service. And therefore, he was seeking that same ananda in his ego. And therefore, he was an angry person. He would give curse here, there. I mean, he would be giving out curses like, it was just something very, very cheap. Just curse here, curse there. And eventually, he had to run for his life. He was not satisfied in the fullest sense. But Ambarish Maharaj, because he was deriving that transcendental pleasure in devotional service, therefore he was full in himself. He was completely satisfied. So that is another principle where we see Ambarish Maharaj fulfills this criteria. So I had one more pastime, but given we are 2 minutes up from the class time, we'll pause here. And maybe we could spend 2-3 minutes with everyone sharing some takeaways that they would take back from this verse. Or any questions? Sorry, any questions before we go for takeaways? Any questions, comments?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, I have a question. As I'm a student, I'm studying. So how should I do my studies as a offering to the Lord? Because I find no connection between my studies and so that I can do my studies without this peacefully. Maybe that is the right word I'm getting now. I hope it's clear. Question is clear.
Yeah. The slightly blunt answer to that is actually your activity is related to Krishna, but somewhere what happens with most of us at times when we try to apply this concept, especially when we don't have taste for the work we do, right? Most of us don't do things we really enjoy and very naturally do. So very often when we are in that state, and that's what happened with me as well. I do something which is like neutral for me. I can do it well, but I'm not naturally impelled to do it. So that's where challenge with people like us who are not into that zone where we are doing something we are really enjoying is that we see our work in devotional service in a disconnected way. But the reality based on philosophy and what Krishna has said is actually they are not disconnected. Whatever duties, according to Gita, whatever duties we have, yagyarthat karmano anyatra lokoyam karma bandhana, that our duties are to be performed as yagya. And yagya, the yagya purusha is Lord Vishnu or Krishna. So therefore, our mind tells us that our activities are not related to Krishna. Our mind tells us that how do I see this as devotional service to Krishna? But based on the Gita, the reality is whatever duties have come to us by the natural course of this world are a duty to Krishna. Now, one might work on switching his work to something which he likes more. But till the time one is able to make that switch, his current allocated work by the nature of the world is still his service to Krishna. It's a difficult answer. It took me a lot of time to digest it because honestly, the work I was doing, I don't enjoy coding. I like more high level stuff. I like talking, as you might understand by now. So it took me a lot of time because my work was very much hands-on coding initially. But I realized that such challenging zones where Krishna puts us in situation where we have to do things we don't like, those are the best situations for us to actually apply this principle of karma yoga and increase our Krishna consciousness. Because when you're actually enjoying the work, sometimes you might be doing it because you're enjoying it, not because you're doing it for Krishna. But if you're into something where you have to give a little push to do it well for Krishna, that's a great opportunity for spiritual advancement, as well as it is your responsibility to fulfill it materially. Does that help? It might not have been an easy answer, but that's the difficult answer I got my years of working.
It's really helpful. Thank you. But one thing wanted to just additionally ask. So I understood you mentioned that it is a whatever work has been assigned is a as the verse you mentioned, it is assigned to us as a, and we must do it as a duty or as a service to Krishna. So so how do I basically practically like offer this work as a service to Krishna? But
So,
is it by doing it to the best of my ability and offering mentally that whatever good results come that I offer, like I do not understand how to offer it to Krishna.
So two aspects. First is doing it for Krishna really well itself is offering it to Krishna. Second is when the results come, you might take some part of the results and offer it to Krishna. You see it this way, right? When we're working for our employers, right? For example, I am working for Accenture Avanade. I never think, how do I offer this to them? Because I know I'm working for them. The problem, the root of the problem is that we are not able to keep the realization that this is actually working for Krishna. Krishna is my employer. And it's not just for you, it's for me as well. Sometimes we are in that zone in work where, we can cut corners here and there. Cut corners as in, you can do it a little bit 6:30 and nothing will go wrong. I come in those situations at times, but then the thing is, by reading Bhagavad Gita again and again, by discussing the philosophy, that conscience pulls me back that, wait a second, I'm not doing it for Avnad or Accenture. I'm accountable to Krishna. Therefore, let me do it to the best of my ability. So the point, Prabhu, is two ways to offer. One is just the quality of work. That is an offering to Krishna. Second is the result of work. The reason it is difficult is, Prabhu, somewhere or the other, in our subconscious mind, we are still reluctant to accept that this work that I don't like is a service to Krishna. And we like to do services we like to do. Does that help?
Very, very true, bro. Thank you very much. Very helpful.
Prabhu, please.
Prabhu?
Yes.
Prabhu, I just shared a link. I think that's the interview by Devakinandan Prabhu last week. And I think he shared his experience on how, there's a part of it where he shared of his own experience, how he dedicated his studies and work as a service. So maybe it can be helpful.
Yes. We will share this on the WhatsApp group.
I've shared in the chat. Yeah, we can share that.
Perfect.
It's already shared in the WhatsApp. Right?
We could take one more question before we do Kirtan. If there's any one more question. If no question, anyone would like to share any takeaways, anything that touched them that they would take back, reflect on, try to apply. No volunteers? Yes, go ahead, Vaishnavi.
I feel like I've talked a lot in the class today, but hopefully that will inspire more people to talk from next session. I just wanted to say I really liked 512 as well. I even wrote it down in my journal just now. And I actually still did not understand what Krishna meant by you are doing nothing. Maybe like your explanation still went over my head, but yeah, maybe I need to mull over it more to figure it out.
Yeah, so not doing anything, it's like this, right? If I'm writing with this pen, right, and I write a book, and then that book becomes a bestseller on New York Times and all of that, the pen doesn't come out and say, I did it. The pen says, well, I was an instrument. I mean, I'm just giving an analogy. It's not, it's analogy, right? In the same way, the point that Krishna means about devotee doing and simultaneously not doing is that he doesn't have the sense of doership. Krishna himself is saying he does eating, he does sleeping, he does all of these things. So Krishna is not denying that he's not doing anything externally, grossly. But what Krishna is saying by the devotee not doing simultaneously anything is that he announces the doership. He just does it as an instrument. You see the point, Vaishnavi?
So that means if I should remove the word I from my vocabulary.
Well, you don't have to remove the word I from your vocabulary, because without that, a lot of English sentences will not be complete. But yes, on a subtle level, on a subconscious level, you don't really need to remove the I, because removing the I, see, the definition of ego is I am. So ego is not bad. What is bad is false ego. So I is very necessary because you are an individual. If your I is that I am a servant of Krishna, that's a very good I. But if your I is I'm the one doing everything, that I becomes ahankara, false ego. So you don't have to remove I. You just have to remove that I am the doer of everything. And it's a journey. It won't happen overnight. So don't become frustrated. It's a journey. Incrementally you do it. Incrementally Krishna reciprocates. You feel the bliss of devotional service. And you keep doing it incrementally. That's the happy process of devotional service. Does it help?
Yeah, it makes a lot more sense. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
So what we'll do now is we'll do a round of Kirtan, and for those of you who might have joined us for the first time, since this is virtual, we do Kirtan in a slightly special and different way, which was nicely introduced to us by Akhila. Just give me a second. Let me bring the picture of deities. So we go around singing two lines of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, and Akhila usually facilitates that. Akhila, are you there? Is Akhila there?
No, she isn't.
Okay, I've never done that round of facilitation. Let me give it a shot. So what we'll do is we'll go in sequence, and this basically gives everybody a chance to do Shravanam as well as Kirtanam. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshtarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Brajari Prabhu, would you like to go next?
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare
Kimaya?
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Abhishek Prabhu?
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Anish Prabhu?
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Leela Sundari Mataji?
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Vartika?
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Vaishnavi?
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Thank you everyone for joining us today. See you all next week. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.